This boat is called the Amigo. So it looks a lot like Ernest Hemingway's boat, the Pilar, which the Pilar is, really remains the most celebrated vessel of Ernest Hemingway's Cuban years. And that boat is now permanently on display in Havana at Hemingway's home there called Finca Vieja. And, I was actually there about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, in January of 2024. And it was beautiful. It was sitting up on the boat. It's basically a museum piece now. But this boat, the Amigo, which is what we're on, is a sister model to the Pilar. And it's being restored here in Riviera Beach by the man I'm sitting next to here, Ryan Doyle. And as I mentioned, it's owned by the same team that owns the cigars we're smoking today, Don Doroteo. And it's really, bringing some new life to a classic boat. And the Amigo is also, unlike the Pilar, the Amigo is actually being prepared to go back out on the water, allowing future generations to experience a living connection to the era that shaped Hemingway's greatest sea stories. So again, if you want to connect with us on the Fearless Journeys community for some great experiences, I encourage you to go to fearlessjourneys.org. But today we're here to talk to Ryan Doyle, as I mentioned, the founder and general manager of Doyle Marine Management. So, Ryan, did I get some of that history right? What's a little bit more on the background of the Amigo and your connection to it?
You did, absolutely. As you mentioned, so Amigo is a 1937 38-foot wheeler. Pilar, which was Hemingway's boat, was a 1934 38-foot wheeler. So this is a sister ship, as you mentioned. These were made, Amigo and Pilar were made by the Wheeler Shipyard in Brooklyn, New York. These were regarded as the Cadillacs, if you will, of yachting back in that era. So in 1937, gas prices were 10 cents per gallon. And this was, again, the Cadillac of that era on the water. Pilar was basically the matriarch of modern sport fishing boats. Hemingway had the rear transom brought down a little bit to reel in the big tuna and marlin that he's famous for catching. And as you mentioned, it's said that he also wrote Old Man in the Sea, which is said Santiago, he got that character from his Cuban captain, Captain Gregorio Fuentes, as the inspiration for that character. So there's a lot of history, and being on board Amigo just takes me, and I'm sure you, back to that nostalgia.
It does. It's funny. It's kind of a little bit of a coincidence. I brought this book here today, The Old Man of the Sea, and part of the reason I have it, and you can see it's all scribbled and everything on the front cover, because I've had this since like middle school or something. I happened to reread it earlier this year just by chance, and lo and behold, I learned about the Amigo here, the sister ship to the Pilar, which is the one that you mentioned is mostly this kind of ship and the kind of fishermen that he was out there with off the Straits of Cuba and Florida Straits. Really interesting. Ryan, I know we're going to get into a little bit more about your backstory with boats, but first, what should people understand about classic wooden boats? And maybe you could even compare it to a lot of the more, I don't know what you would call it, plastic boats that most people are familiar with today.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I also refer to them as plastic boats, kind of, the fiberglass boats of modern day, if you will. Wooden boats, obviously, they're made out of wood, which are made out of trees, which were once living. And, each living thing has a soul, and I think that soul translates well into boats like this. So, it's a more direct affiliation, if you will, of the soul of the world and the spirits around us. It was also said in my travels through wooden boating that, these boats are brunettes in the sea of blondes. So they really stand out. I captain everything up to 100-foot yachts, and I get more thumbs up on wooden boats, wooden classics like this than I do on those. They're just captivating and takes everybody back to a simpler time.